from the killing fields of Western Europe during World War I. To this factory in Orange, New Jersey. And this factory in Waterbury, Connecticut. And to this factory in Ottawa, Illinois. This is the story of how something billed as the wonder element would leave its harmful trace for generations to come on the communities and the women who worked in these factories. These women are now known as the Radium Girls. At the outbreak of war in Europe, in what became a conflict of which nations or empires could outproduce the other, several factories were set up across the United States to produce watch dials painted with a paint containing the wonder element of radium, a radioactive element that glows in the dark. These factories employed hundreds of young women who were well suited to the detailed job of painting watch dials due to their small hands. In 1898, Marie and Pierre Curie discovered new radioactive elements, radium and polonium. Shortly after its discovery, doctors, laypeople, and reporters quickly declared new health uses for radium as an additive in numerous consumer products, to include toothpaste, hair creams, and even food items. Thus, the radium craze was born. The women who worked with radium in painting watch dials were at the time called ghost girls because the radium dust they were exposed to on a daily basis would make their clothes, hair, and skin literally glow. Because of the radium craze, this glow was often desirable. Though not officially trained in this way by the company, the women who were paid per watch dial painted sought ways to become more efficient, so they would lip, dip, paint. Put the brush on their lips to straighten the bristles, dip the brush in the radium paint, and apply the paint to the dials. At the peak of production in the factories across the United States, thousands of women did this day in and day out, some for many years. As we will see in part 2, the results would be nothing less than tragic. After failing to achieve cures for their mysterious illnesses, some exasperated women in Orange, New Jersey found a lawyer willing to take their case in an attempt to get compensation for their medical problems. 5 employees of the U.S. Radium Company from New Jersey sued the company in 1927. The company strongly denied that radium caused the health issues of their employees. The belief that radium was not only safe, but beneficial, was based upon research conducted by scientists and doctors hired by the very firms that had built successful businesses around the sale of radium products. The company even insisted that the health problems of one of the women was attributed to a sexually transmitted disease, not radium. In reality, absorbed radium behaves similarly to calcium and is deposited in the tissues of the body, especially bone. Radium exposure began with toothaches, which quickly led to anemia, bone fractures, and necrosis of the jaw, which became known as radium jaw. Time and time again, the company insisted radium was not harmful and could not possibly be the cause of the women's mysterious ailments. However, the small group of women, led by Grace Fryer, would not be deterred. Grace and some of the other women did eventually settle with the company out of court, providing some compensation to them and their suffering families. The New Jersey case, in which the company made efforts to delay, due in part to the fact that the plaintiffs may not have lived long enough to see it through, made national headlines. An Ottawa Radium Dial Company employee, Catherine Donahue, read the coverage in horror. In 1932, Donahue's ailments became severe enough to cause the company to fire her after 9 years of service. She too sought compensation from the company that poisoned her. On her deathbed, with a grapefruit-sized tumor on her hip, few of her teeth left, and portions of her jaw missing, she gave testimony that eventually led to some compensation for her and a few of the other women suffering from radium poisoning. The Radium Dial Company originally started in Chicago in 1917, but operated in Ottawa from 1922 until 1936. After the company ousted its president, Joseph Kelly, in 1934, he opened another dial printing company, Luminous Processes, a few blocks away. Eventually, after the lawsuits and the dangers of radium finally became more accepted, the Radium Dial Company shuttered its doors in 1936. However, Luminous Processes continued to operate until 1978. After its closure, the Radium Dial Company building in Ottawa had a meat locker in the basement as well as a farmer's co-op. The building was eventually demolished in 1968. Its bricks were used in the construction of new homes and streets, and the rest of the building's radioactive remains were used as landfill in and around Ottawa. In 1980, Congress established the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, informally known as Superfund. This allows the Environmental Protection Agency to clean up contaminated sites and forces the parties responsible for that contamination to perform cleanups or reimburse the government for EPA-led cleanup work. The EPA added 16 areas, collectively known as the Ottawa Radiation Areas Superfund site, to the National Priorities List in 1992. As of 2022, 15 of the 16 areas that make up the Superfund site have been cleaned. This essentially means that the radioactive waste has been moved to other states, such as Nevada, that are willing to accept it. With a half-life of 1,600 years, the radium waste will be around for a very long time. As the old saying goes, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. The story of the Radium Girls, the bravery of the women, the profit-driven motives of the men who led those companies, and the environmental impact lasting over 105 years should teach us the imperatives of making informed and ethical business, engineering, and human decisions.